All right, let's dive into something pretty incredible, the world of soaring flight. We're going to uncover the hidden forces that let pilots climb thousands of feet using, well, nothing but the wind.
I mean, it seems almost magical, right? This silent aircraft just harnessing invisible energy to totally master the mountain landscape. But, it's not magic. It's physics. And we're about to break down exactly how they do it.
So, the big secret? It all comes down to something called the valley wind. And honestly, the best way to picture it is as this massive, invisible river of air, just flowing uphill all day long. This river, this is the engine that powers the whole show in the mountains.
Okay, so we've got this invisible river, but how does it actually work? Well, the key isn't just the river itself. It's about how that river collides and interacts with the mountains. That's what really unlocks the sky for pilots.
You see, this river of air isn't some smooth, gentle stream. As the sun beats down and heats up the mountain slopes, it creates these little pockets of warm, buoyant air. Now, when the valley wind comes rushing in and hits the landscape, the mountains, the ridges, the canyons, it actually helps release these pockets. And those pockets become predictable areas of lift called thermals. For a pilot, finding a thermal is literally like catching a free elevator straight to the clouds.
All right, so if thermals are the elevators, how in the world do you find the up button? Well, pilots are always on the lookout for what they call trigger points. These are specific features on the ground that reliably kick off or trigger these columns of rising air. Think of it like a treasure map where X marks the spot for lift. First up on our map is a trigger point called the prow effect, and the name is perfect. Just imagine the prow of a big ship cutting right through the water. Well, some mountain features do the exact same thing to our invisible river of air. The cause and effect here is super straightforward. You've got a prominent rocky spine or a rib sticking out into the valley. This thing basically acts like a ramp. It forces the air up, and that's the trigger that releases a warm thermal. Let's actually visualize that flow for a second. Okay, so the valley wind rushes toward the spine, it hits it, and it has nowhere to go but up. It's mechanically forced upwards. That little upward shove is all it takes to peel away that pocket of warm air that's been baking on the sunny slope. And boom, just like that, a thermal is born, and it starts to climb.
Okay, our next trigger point is a little weird. It's a bit more counterintuitive. We're actually going to look for lift on the lee side. That's the side that's sheltered from the wind. Now, normally, that's a spot you'd want to avoid, but this is the exception to the rule.
So the key here is a small terrain feature. We're talking about a little knob of rock, or maybe the edge of a forest, something that just temporarily blocks the main valley wind. What this does is it creates this calm, protected pocket of air right behind it. And inside that little sanctuary, hot air can just pool and collect without getting blown all over the place. And as this pool of hot air just sits there and grows, it gets more and more buoyant. It's just like one of those big bubbles on the bottom of a pot of water that's about to boil. Eventually, it gets so buoyant that it just breaks away from the ground and shoots upward as this big, powerful, well-organized thermal. Okay, that brings us to our third trigger point, and this one is often the most reliable of them all, the confluence zone. This is where two of our invisible rivers of air come together, and when they meet, well, something pretty powerful happens. A confluence zone is really just where two valleys meet up. You've got wind flowing up each valley, and they collide right at this intersection. The air has nowhere to go but up, right? So it creates what pilots call a house thermal. It's so reliable, it's like it's always at home. It's an absolutely fantastic source of power during the day, but, and this is a big but, that same power source has a really dangerous flip side once the sun starts to go down. So we've spent all this time learning how to use this amazing river of air, but it's just as important to know when it becomes dangerous. Because every single evening, that entire river completely reverses course. And this is absolutely critical for safety. Pilots have to be so aware of this transition period, because getting it wrong, well, it can have some very serious consequences. So here's the deal. You've got two basic states for the mountain. During the day, it's all about adiabatic flow. The sun heats the slopes, and the warm air flows up. Simple. But in the evening, everything switches. We get katabatic flow. The slopes cool down, and all that cool, dense air starts to sink and flow down the mountain.
Okay, so here's the danger. Let's walk through it. First, the sun goes down, and the mountain slopes start to cool off fast. That means the upslope anabatic flow just stops. Then, the downslope katabatic flow kicks in. Now, if you're coming into land, this is the scary part. What was a nice, safe headwind just a few minutes ago can suddenly flip, and now it's a dangerous tailwind, pushing you from behind right when you need control the most.
So what's your best defense against this? It's pretty simple, really. Situational awareness. As you're coming down to land, you have got to keep your eyes glued to indicators on the valley floor. Look for a windsock, a plume of smoke from a campfire, anything that tells you the true wind direction down there. That's really your only way to know for sure if that flip has already happened.
All right, let's bring all this back together. Because, knowing how the river flows is one thing, but actually flying in it safely, that's a whole other ballgame. This is where all that theory meets cold, hard practice.
So, picture this. You're flying straight into a strong uphill valley wind. You look down and your ground speed is just crawling. It feels like you're barely moving. Now, the natural temptation, and it's a strong one, is to pull on the brakes to try and stay up longer, to kind of float in place.
But that's exactly the wrong thing to do. Pulling the brakes just cranks up your wing's angle of attack, and that puts you dangerously close to a stall. You could even get blown backwards. The correct response? You gotta maintain your normal flying speed, what pilots call trim speed. That allows you to safely penetrate through the wind and actually make progress towards your landing zone.
So we've kind of learned to see these invisible rivers that shape a pilot's entire flight. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other hidden forces, what other invisible flows and patterns are out there shaping the world all around us in ways we just never stop to notice?